Hey everybody, Matt Galogly here with SRP Medical Marketing, and welcome to a bonus edition of the Practice Profit System podcast. I have with me the famous, the infamous Joe Krieger of Boston BioLife. Joe has been on the podcast before. He is a longtime friend and a longtime supporter. As you can tell, he's based in Boston, so we're not going to take that against him. We're not going to use that against him that he's a dyed-in-the-wool Bostonian. Before we got on here, we were talking about how the Red Sox are taking the pipe, but we're not here to talk sports. We're here to talk functional and regenerative medicine. And Joe's got an event coming up. We're going to talk about that. It's out in San Diego. I'll be speaking at that event. And, San Diego is always a great place to visit any time of the year. But Joe, you have, I always think it's fascinating. You're not a doctor, but yet you have this like unbelievable understanding of all the new functional medicine and regenerative medicine techniques and skill sets and procedures that are out there. I'm always curious, what the hell drove you into this industry? Like, why this one?
Well, I think it kind of chose me. I mean, my background was really, I was fortunate that not being able to complete a medical school education beyond, a master's degree in biochemistry. When I got into medical devices, I saw a huge need for surgical training and so much new innovation in development. And when I got kind of to later stages in my career and I adopted similar principles for regenerative medicine training, regenerative medicine basically dragged me into the biology of medicine, which dragged me into all kinds of crazy stuff like functional medicine. And when you look at other utilization of regenerative medicine therapies like aesthetics and cosmetics and hair restoration, and now some other things like sexual wellness, your background, you start to see overlaps and correlations. But all of these are tied together through similar themes, which is inflammatory diseases, in the functional considerations of health and wellness. And I think it's a curiosity, it's a passion, but it's also a life issue, because knowing the things that we teach, everyone can benefit, whether you're in a healthcare position or not, and everybody knows somebody that's suffering from something. So it's not a question of what if, it's what and when, and how do we predict and plan what ultimately is our clinical pathway in life. And so it's kind of an interesting hobby, but what I really enjoy about it is when you get to the root of it, it does have scientific evidence that supports it. And that scientific evidence is what's really necessary for the field to progress, because we don't know what we don't know, and we're dumb enough to pursue things in a way because we know what doesn't work, right? We know for 70 years, drugs and surgery or whatever, and we know that the pharmaceutical industry is symptom-based and it's reactionary, and healthcare in general is reactionary. And I think that the coronavirus and COVID and virus in general have taught us about proactive medicine and how to be able to enhance our immune system and make ourselves more compatible with the pathogens that we coexist with. So really it's I've been fortunate though, because a lot of the companies that come to Boston BioLife don't have a voice anywhere else, and a lot of times people don't understand them. And honestly, there's not a lot of clinical education or trade fairs that support a cohesive approach at this. You might pick it up here and there, but if you went to a hair restoration meeting or a women's health meeting or a functional medicine meeting or even interventional pain or orthopedic, you'll see themes of this looking at regenerative medicine, but you don't really see how do these people become arthritic? How do they move it through the disease pathway to get, they didn't wake up this way. We were all relatively born healthy, and epigenetically we've changed. So we're really a focused effort to look at therapies that support each other and technologies that really are complementary. And the idea is to try to get everyone to kind of throw their hat in the ring to figure out how to, make it all go better.
So really, so I was asked this one time by one of my doctors, and they wanted to know, like, what, are you advocating a particular type of procedure or a particular machine? And, I told him, I said, no, you're really kind of like the collection point of all these different, I guess I'd call it ideologies or, thought processes with regards to functional and regenerative medicine. Is that how you see it, or how do you kind of see your role?
Well, we're certainly agnostic. I mean, as a scientist and really a kind of an enthusiast of the history of medicine, if you look at the evolution of what medical procedures and how they evolved, I mean, there've really been a lot of trial and error, and people have gone out to great lengths to try to understand things that no one else knew. And that's really been at the forefront. And now that's more prevalent than ever because we're all connected. So research that's being done all over the world is being shared. And what we really tried to do, or I tried to do, I say we as if I'm some collective entity. It's just me and Mike Cameron, my producer. And we study the language of science. We study the globe for research papers and organizations. And now that we have such a connected world, it's easy for me to look out and find papers on, glycocalyx for vascular health, looking at the immune system and how the different constituents of blood can function to help people immunologically, how mitochondrial health and oxidative stress reaction to epigenetics and genomics and testing, all these things come together so people can build a higher understanding of who the patient is. So personalized medicine is individualized medicine for you. Personalized precision is really looking at your biochemistry. So even if you put people in 4 buckets, like a high, medium, low, or no reactor or metabolizer of a drug, that's why some people don't do well, and that's why there's so many potential adverse reactions to drugs, because they don't necessarily work for everyone. They work for a large enough segment of the population for a disease that make it viable for pharmaceutical companies to create them. But we're moving into personalized precision medicine. Well, not only are we looking at non-pharmaceutical resolution to diseases or management, but early detection through different biomarkers, not just imaging, but chemicals, proteins in the blood, imaging studies in looking at proteins in the eyeball, looking at vascular health at a microscopic scale, and studying other indicators like polyphosphorylated tau protein or VEGF for Alzheimer's in conjunction with like an APOE4 gene. That's, do you have dementia? No. Are you moving in that direction? Perhaps. So then what do you do, right? So then you start looking at ways you can. So I say it's predict, prepare, and prevent, right? Or detect, deter, and defeat. How do we figure out what's going to get us? How do we manage and mitigate that? And then how do we employ these strategies into our daily living so that, we may be able to live a higher quality life, not just a longer life.
Got it.
And
now, how long ago did you create Boston BioLife? No, I'm sorry. How long ago did it make?
2015. It was really just a scientific education company. It was a hobby. It was an idea. Like maybe the doctors want to know about CRISPR-Cas9. Maybe they want to know about CAR-T. Maybe they want to look at 3D printing or organoids or some other cool thing, antibody manufacturing, so that what's happening in pharmacy has now gone into the lab, and now the labs are going into the clinic. So translational medicine, and really the fact, not any particular area of it, but the fact that it had very little awareness.
Yeah.
That the MDs don't know what the PhDs knew. And if you think about it, why doesn't the money translate to the research, translate to the cure?
Right.
It's a huge lag. I mean, it might
it's massive.
It's non-existent. But personalized immunotherapy, if you do want to look at what's worked, cancer deaths are down 30%, survival rates are up. What used to be a 25% survival rate for, say, pancreatic cancer or stomach cancer or colon cancer or rectal cancer, it's now 85%.
Wow.
Providing they find it early. Breast cancer, lung cancers, they're all, highly manageable if they can be found when the tumors are sub 2 millimeter, or it hasn't metastasized, or, it's picked up. And that comes through routine screening. But it also comes through patient engagement. So we also try to teach physicians how to talk to their patients. And what behaviors can the patients take and do so that they're healthier patients? So at the cornerstone of what we do, we argue that healthier patients provide better outcomes. And whether you're a dermatologist or a gynecologist or an orthopedic surgeon or a pain management physician, all of your patients have inflammatory issues. And all of those inflammatory issues come from central sources like your gut, right? So you've got companies that look at the gut, but the companies that look at gut microbiome or the testing for that, whether it's, the biological constituents of the stomach or the gut, or things like, your bioavailability, your ability to process certain, nutritional components, coupled with your, your lifestyles and your habit. And we know that ultra processed foods are causing diabetic and they're causing massive obesity. And, now that we're all worried about what's going to kill us, right? So we have to prepare. We wear masks and we got to be vaccinated. What are the real killers? I mean, it's American diet disease.
Oh, God, it's unreal, isn't it?
Runs on Dunkin's, they're not kidding. It's Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Domino's. And, I don't begrudge anyone for making a living, but these companies need to be more responsible on what's healthy versus what has a shelf life. If you pick up a fig Newton that's a year old and it's still soft, there's something wrong.
That's not good. Since you've been doing this 2015, what's been one of the biggest breakthroughs or discoveries that has just really shocked you the most? Meaning, wow, you didn't think that was possible and now it is.
I would say things that perhaps are poorly understood, like things like exosomes, or
I love exosomes. I had COVID and I used exosomes, and it was a game changer. It was a total game changer. But
and you wonder why, right? So if you looked at the history of cord blood and perinatals, and they're vilified now, but they've got a long history. They got 30, 40 years of being used for different ailments, and whether it's a minor inflammatory reaction, which stimulates the immune system to take care of. I just think it's the understanding and the cross-pollinating between doctor types in the labs. Before we didn't have a test for anything. Now we have a test for almost everything. So who are the companies that are doing the testing? We have a vendor coming to Boston BioLife Rupert Health, which really has put the world of personalized testing at the hands of any healthcare provider.
Wow.
And they can order whatever test they want. They farm it out. They get the lead. They get everything back. They do the billing. And it's really, so if you want to look at allergies or sensitivities or reaction or metabolic profiles, even things like COVID, you could do an immunological survey of yourself to determine what your potential risk factors are beyond age and other issues like diabetes. There's things that people could do if they really cared. Companies could do if they really cared to, rather than saying just get vaccinated or you can't come to work, because at the end of the day, you'll be finding that this, reinfection rate, although I'm always skeptical of the tests. I mean, how are 6 Red Sox testing positive for COVID in one day, and then the guy next to him has been quarantined? Where, are they sick?
Right.
I don't want to sound like, but these people aren't symptomatic, and we don't even know if they're contagious.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was fascinating. When I got COVID, Katie, my girlfriend, didn't. Right. And I mean, we work from the house all day long. Obviously, we sleep in the same bed. I mean,
well, they say 20% of the people won't get it, and then the people that have already got it, and then there's people that got it and didn't know they got it. And so, with the different variations of Corona, I think there's 8 now, 5 make up the flus. But no, is it a bad thing that we learned about virology? No. Is it a bad thing that we learned about hygiene? No. Is it a bad thing that we understood pathogenesis? No. This is all positive stuff. We also have to understand that our health and wellness is the protection that we can ensure, not Pfizer, not Moderna, not somebody not sneezing on us, not a mask, not social distancing. It's really your immune system, be stronger than the virus. Do we want to react, fight or flight, or we want to fight? I mean, are you going to just wait for this thing to kill you in the middle of the night through God knows what? You don't even know when and where you could get it. And there's some people that have no idea where they got it.
Yeah.
And who even knows if that's what it was. And I'm not saying, didn't experience something, but I am saying it's incumbent upon everyone to try to be healthier. So what can you do? What can you control?
Well, that's where the functional side comes in, right? Like being proactive with, and there's, I know a lot of my doctors, prescribing ivermectin, taking that in, low doses just to kind of protect yourself, thymosin alpha, BPC 157, doing all of these things. And, really, if you think when I got COVID, I was so thankful that I had a network like you and my 16 doctors that I work with one-on-one. I've never had so many doctors check in on me in my life. It was awesome. And they're all like on the cutting edge of functional medicine and regenerative medicine. And it was a game changer for me.
There's 2 things driving this. One is the fact that healthcare providers have to find new ways to treat their patients and things that are relevant. So nobody wants to go to their primary care doctor. And what's he going to do? Give you a blood test, a digital rectal exam, weigh you, take your blood pressure, and then stare at his computer and hope he doesn't get sued? I mean, that's not really healthcare. You need the functional medicine doctors. No one listens to them. So patients need to be their own care plan provider. It's not that hard. We outsource our most valuable, precious resource to a stranger who knows nothing about us.
Yeah, that's so true.
And we act like we can't handle it. It's like putting gas in our car. Do you need to have a mechanic do that? No, you got to understand, the basics. And I think that exercise, diet, nutrition, and so physicians are adopting new things, which things like you teach, how to attract patients, how to communicate with patients, texting, other things like, so we have a relationship now with FullScript, and they have a dispensary of 3,000 products with different protocols or at least intelligence algorithms to say, if you have this, try this. Different doctors, they have 10,000 healthcare providers that are all looking for new ways to treat their patients and share ideas. And that's a very powerful thing where you can have that system installed in your computer network for your patients. Patients can log in, they can educate themselves, they can understand what things they could do. And ultimately, I think this will lead to kind of self-induced trials where patients will want to be involved in studies where maybe it's ivermectin, maybe it's vitamin D, maybe it's vitamin D with walking and eating this or taking that. Plus other things like vascular health analysis. We just did a mini course on vascular health. And, again, I can't say too much negative about COVID because it changed my business from an in-person to an online, which has given me the ability to create way more content that's relevant.
Yeah. And at a faster speed, right?
At a much faster speed.
We've had to adapt and change so quickly over the last 18
months. And we
months.
have the tools that we can say, here's papers on this. And because we have the peer-reviewed research tool that we have, which is every journal article on the face of the earth in real time, it was published last week, we'll have it through our research partner, EBSCO. And this is what all the research companies have. This is what all the pharmaceutical companies have. This is what all the medical schools have. And they've given me the option to sell it to all of you. So you can have access to every paper, not only from Dynamed, which is all the clinical papers, but also Biotechnology Source, which is all the research papers. So if you want to look at, inflammatory diseases for traumatic brain, you'll see the hormone profiles with the cytokines, the growth factors, and the imaging studies for that pathology, including the epidemiology. How many people have it? What does it look like pathophysiologically? What can be done about it? And what's been tried. So that sharing information is the gap that we try to bridge. And the in-person meetings, which has always been my passion, because everybody shows up and, they really feed off each other, just like musicians and athletes do. Yeah. When scientists and engineers and healthcare providers get together, you see the light bulbs going on. And our technology providers are second to none. They're all black belt ninjas, warriors, people that have been fighting in the trenches, trying to develop things without millions of dollars. We are the island of misfit toys. But I would stack our intellectual capacity against.
Does that make you Herbie the dentist? I just need to know. Are you Herbie the dentist?
I'm probably the snowman, the snow monster.
You're the snow monster. Okay, that's it. Yeah, you're the snow monster. Bumbles. Bumbles. You're Mr. Bumbles. You kind of look like Mr. Bumbles.
Well, you go with what you got.
Yeah. What in June and I know you talked about it at the June event because we were all together out in Dallas. June 1st, the FDA came out about their crackdown on stem cells and all of that. Now that the dust is kind of settling on that, like what's your take on all of that right now? How's that impacting the regenerative space? What are you hearing from your doctors that are on the ground? What's been kind of the impact of all of that?
Well, I know the demand hasn't changed, and I don't think anyone's afraid of using these products because they do have high safety profiles regardless of their illegitimate status, which really is a moving target. Many of the 361s have been reclassified as 351 simply because they're being used more prevalently in different areas. So what was used in the foot and the ankle now is being used in the knee, now being used in the face, in other areas, hair. So most people are doing what the FDA wants, which is an IND, but by the rules. And if you notice, we had the panel discussion. Matt Murphy called it the game show panel discussion, but I really
it was. It was the game show. It was.
Well, we took the question from FDA and we told people what they said. Can I sell my product with an IND? And the answer is only, yes, but you can't bill, right? Or no, you can't. Having an IND does not give you a license to sell. But what it does do is it sheds lights on what we can, in metaphysics, you don't look at what you don't have, it's what do you have. So we have autologous products. We have a lot of things in blood, proteins in the serum, things like A2M and IRAP, LL37, PDG11. There's a lot of things that are available that we haven't discovered. People are looking at conditioned serum also as a therapy for COVID. You can take the serum of people that have been infected and concentrate those antibodies and give them to someone else as a therapy. So basically looking at blood products, adipose-derived biologics, structure, stromovascular tissue versus, nanofat, the SVF part of it, nothing IV, nothing enzymatic, so that's changed the landscape as far as what people are comfortable doing. But we know that a lot of this stuff works. Fat's very angiogenic. We know that there's evolutions in derivatives, like people are purifying the extracellular matrices and the vasculature of adipose-derived biologics. So forget the cell. We know exosomes exist because the secretome is more important than the cell itself. So a lot of the bickering, if you will, about cells and their potential abilities or alive or dead are really irrelevant when you understand, how things happen kind of from an endocrinology standpoint. What are the paracrine effects? What are the microvascular signals? What's in those microvasculars? Why are they being signals? What are the signals? And how does a finger heal? How does a salamander regrow a tail? So whatever the method is, through genetics to endocrinology to, parasites, stem cells, all of this biology is being better understood. And if nothing else, the world's greatest science fair continues because there's a need. Joint replacements aren't doing very well. Drugs are causing massive problems in society.
Oh God.
Especially opioids. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
why not try something else? And again, the government's not mandating exercise and nutrition, but they should. But patients know. People are smart. They understand, that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great if they just mandated, because what was it in COVID? The average American put on 29 pounds in the first year.
Everyone, the obesity is one of the key indicators of, who this does.
The makers of metformin just got they got a big ass installment on their annuity that they get from
it's really
people on that stuff for 20 years.
Food and drug, right? Food's killing us.
Yeah.
And it's hard to know what to eat. And then even if it's healthy, is it organic? And I heard organic's not healthy. I don't know. It's eat half of what you should, and then eat less, exercise more. Take a little bit. Your brain's 85% fat, so you can't cut out animal fat. So then you got to you got the keto diet versus you got Atkins, you got paleo, you got all these different versions, and maybe some people respond different. Maybe it's mind over matter. Maybe it's just calories burned versus calories taken in. With other things like a Japanese person who lives in LA has a different epidemiology than a Japanese person that lives in Tokyo. Hey, do you see the kitty?
I was just going to say the kitty has made an appearance. If you listen to my last interview, in April or May with Joe, the cats came and they started smacking him on the head. They were sitting on your shoulder.
They demand attention.
Yes. And he or she or it or whatever the hell it is.
There's a boy and a girl. The girl's pretty shy.
Okay, yeah. The guy was like, "Hey, dude, look at me," and he was climbing all over you, sitting on your hair. I mean, he was great.
He's a good little boy.
Yeah. So I guess I've got to give credit to the cats, and we've got to give them a credit. They've got to get their SAG points. So Screen Actor Guild points. All right. So what is let's talk about this event that's coming up in San Diego. So it's going to be beautiful San Diego, September 24th to 26th. So it's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it's right on the beach, right?
The Coronado Resort. It's the Lowe's Coronado, which is a marina, and we have the whole peninsula. So we're just looking at, the ability to social distance. We can open the doors and windows. We're going to be in a very cathartic environment. Most of the hotels that we pick are in some type of, nice setting, either on the beach or, on the ocean. Dallas was the Atoll, which had a big, beautiful property that we could explore.
The pool was great.
So, yeah, it was just a little bit, it's a little eerie since people aren't really back, and I'm sure that'll be the case too, a little bit with California, but we have this whole hotel. It's beautiful. It's big. It's on the water. So it's a great place to bring your family. They're not charging an arm and a leg. I think the rooms are $199. We're going to feed you breakfast and lunch at least, and there'll be some couple of receptions we're planning, one for traumatic brain injury and the veterans. And the other one would be the Top Doctor Awards, which we're going to recognize innovators in the field, not only healthcare providers, but technology providers, people that have developed new technology that's made a difference. And going back to your previous question, that's kind of the interesting thing, is to see all the new, applications, iterations, business models that have come up, by looking at what's possible with these products and where their values are. People storing fat, people purifying proteins from the serum, people building up their immune system using other mechanisms. So the meeting in San Diego, kind of culminating in all the thoughts that we're having, is really the combination of functional medicine, which is all the testing, personalized precision, health strategies, nutrition, looking at clinical applications that are basically rooted in inflammatory diseases, but also looking at the ability to detect through testing other biomarkers and imaging diseases, and then how to clinically address them, whether they're one particular type or they're systemic. Saturday and Sunday are going to be more clinical applications of regenerative medicine. But, again, healthier patients make better outcomes. So whether you've got PRP or bone marrow or fat or perinatal or extracellular matrices or A2M, some of the proteins, but also how do they interface clinically with mechanical devices like shock waves and lasers and microneedling pens. None of this stuff works by itself. So you got to kind of prepare the patient, then you got to prepare the surgical or the clinical area of interest, and then you work on it with maybe a continuum of different therapies, including continued nutrition. Sometimes it's bracing. If you look at orthopedics, so we have the best scientists and orthopedic. And if I can share my screen a little bit, I'll walk through a little bit of this because I know that was something we talked about.
Yeah, click that button at the bottom to share, and while you do that,
so
here, here's what's interesting is, and I'll add this to the stream here, is, I was at your, obviously you and I communicate on a regular basis following your stuff. And I agree totally with this. When we had our clinics, when we were fixing ED or doing Peyronie's, and we were using PRP, we found a dramatic improvement if they were on HRT 2 weeks prior to their first blood draw and insertion.
Yep.
We saw, and then I've got doctors now taking the data and the information that I've gotten from your events, and my doctors are now, like my doctor in Canada puts all of his patients on a vegan diet 5 days prior. And is doing it after as well to reduce some of that some of the inflammatory issues, and his results are phenomenal. Like he's getting like 80 to 85% on the first go round, and he's just like really just confirming what we're seeing now is it's not just PRP alone, or it's not just exosomes alone. It's the entire package that you're putting together. And my clients that are doing that are charging 7, 8, 10, 12, 15. I have a couple that charge $20,000 for this kind of stuff, and it's getting great results for the doctor, for the patients. So, all right. So I'm going to add this to the stream. It's
a great thing that you just said, because that physician who figured out his own way to create a very unique and novel approach to what I call an individual care plan pathway. So you and I are
love that.
Yeah. So what are the things that you can do individually? So whether it's their weight loss, if it's the diet, like you said, a vegan thing, you tie that together with exercise. What supplements are they taking? And all the professionals that we bring together. And if you can see the screen, you see some.
Joe, did I lose you?
Nope.
Oh, looks like Joe got a little. Are you back? There you go. I think you're back.
Am I back? Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can't blame the cats for that one. I think it's Comcast, but
it's we're going to blame it on Comcast or the Red Sox, right?
Exactly.
One of the two.
So if you look at can you see the faculty?
Yep.
All right. So these are all people in different capacities in this field that when they come together. So Dr. Asadra, who can't make it, but he's been in the past, he's kind of runs a high-end Hollywood aesthetics program. Caroline DeLucia is world famous. She travels the world teaching cosmetic gynecology and women's health. And it's not only about cosmetics, but there's a lot of issues in women's with incontinence and pelvic floor and complications from multiple pregnancies, et cetera. Dr. DeWalt talks about adipose drive technologies and how to use them orthopedically. John Farrell is working with professional sports teams, and he's developing new technologies, not only with PRP but bone marrow, subchondral, for cartilage regeneration. David Norell has been a stalwart in the field for over a decade, where he was the founder of the American Academy of Regenerative Medicine. He's been a friend. He was one of our first faculty, and he'll be giving us an update on where's this whole field been going from like the beginning with people like Professor Hernigu all the way through the different groups. Every orthopedic organization, AOM, AAOS, ISIS, ASIP, they all have some constituent interest in this.
Right.
Holtorf and Lavallee, and we'll be talking about metabolic code and peptides and more. We have Michael Meng teaching ultrasound, Tyler with physical therapy, Rowan Paul, who works with the San Diego, Oakland Ballet, and the Oakland A's.
Oh, wow.
Ken Patine was one of the founders of the interdiscal biologics procedure. it's funny because you may not think about ballet as athletes, but they get injured and they are athletic.
Oh my gosh,
Gymnasts.
it's brutal on their
So
feet.
getting these people healthy athletes, but the concepts that work within a healthy athlete also work in the weekend warrior, or even people with, progressive arthritis. Dr. Scuderi, the founder, the discoverer of, alpha-2 macroglobulin. Dr. Zhang, who's going to be Wang, who'll be discussing, again, microfat. Dr. Beth Shirley talking about nitric oxide. Kathleen O'Neill Smith, who's one of the architects of the TB12 program. Ian White, who's a founder of multiple perinatal biologics company and worked at Harvard and the University of Miami, and has developed many technologies and continues to be an innovator in the field. And Chad Yarbrough, who discussed genetics. But if you look at this well-rounded group of professionals, they all contribute a different piece of the puzzle, whether it's a clinical application like sex orthopedics, a biochemical process like peptides or hormones, looking at, follow-up like Dr. Opitz talking about physical therapy and aftercare, Dr. Scuderi, all these individuals have given their time, talent, and treasure, to support their relative fields. And most of them done it just out of pure, ability and passion. So if you look at our agenda, we have breakup. Fridays, all lectures, and then we have a reception at the beautiful hotel. And then we do the clinical areas. So we're going to go from women's health to aesthetics through metabolics. Saturday, we get into the biochemistry of regenerative medicine and some clinical applications in orthopedics and different. And then the afternoons are different in that there's 9 breakouts on Saturday and Sunday, some for aesthetics like hair, sexual wellness and aesthetics, some for orthopedics like PRP and bone marrow and adipose harvesting, joint injections and fluoro applications for spine. So all of these give the healthcare provider the ability to learn not only the science of how to harvest, process, and understand different new and emerging therapies, but how to clinically apply them into practice. And these are taught by healthcare providers with experience, technology providers that know their equipment, and really the relationships and hands-on experience that you get is second to none because you'd never get all this in one place. So what do exosomes have to do with aesthetics? Well, if you went to an aesthetics meeting, you might learn that, but you wouldn't understand how it works for hair. You might not understand the difference between an exosome and a platelet, and how does ultrasound work in orthopedics? And where do I look at ligaments and tendons versus joints, et cetera? So, there's a lot of nuances and guile that go into this. So we have a special now, the early bird. The meeting's 20 days away, which sounds like it's pretty close, but it's probably not. We have this beautiful hotel on the water. You can bring your family.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
For every paid MD, you get to bring your administrator for free. We're getting military and breaks. This hotel this is where we'll be having our hands-on, our breakouts, receptions.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
So I like to say that it would take you, you'd have to travel the world and it'd take you several years to be able to learn everything you're going to learn and meet the people. It's about relationships. And it's about, imagine waking up there and you're going to go hang out with some of the smartest people, on the face of the earth that can really help your practice. And people like you, Matt, people that have dedicated their lives to helping healthcare providers. It's one thing to understand it. It's another thing to know how to do it. It's another thing, to be able to apply it and help somebody.
Yeah.
So we have this little peninsula. It's ours. And
awesome.
I encourage everybody to come and bring their friends and family and tell everyone they know, and we'll give you a discount and we'll make sure that you have a great time. The meeting's small enough and it's intimate enough. We have about 150 people in attendance. We have another 100 between faculty and healthcare providers. And, some of the faculty stay for the whole time. We are going to be working with the veterans. There's going to be some interesting people that come, and the meetings are evolving. So if you have ideas on things that we could cover in traumatic brain injury, orthobiologics, aesthetics, sexual wellness, health, functional medicine, please let us know. We do have room for others to come.
Awesome.
And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for one reason only. Well, because the cat has
The
arrived.
cat has arrived. The cat has
But
arrived.
he just took off. So I don't know if you can see me again. But,
So, all right. So if you to register, you go to bostonbiolife.com. That's
yep.
bostonbiolife.com. It's right there on the front page. That discount is good until what, September 13th?
9th or something. I don't know. We'll keep it open. We'll keep the light on. Just
Okay.
come.
Yep.
And if you have anything particular you want to learn, you don't have to do all 6 breakouts. You can pick 6 out of the 9. You can do 3. It's basically $1,000 to get in the door, and it's $300 a breakout. And we're going to feed you breakfast and lunch and breakouts, and you're probably going to have a reception or 2. That depends on the demand. And, I'm still formulating. I know we got a blank canvas, and, everybody has an opportunity to contribute. And whether you're a PhD or an MD or a technology provider or a resident or a student or just an enthusiast like myself and yourself, we all have the ability to see things a certain way and to contribute to the body of evidence. And Boston BioLife is very much like that. We are a consortium of like-minded individuals that behave in a certain way for the betterment of the field. It does take a little bit of vision and bravery to break through, but we know what the status quo is. And we're not going to begrudge anybody from what they've done in the past or what they'll do in the future, but simply understand that there's new things coming. There's a lot of new ideas, and these new ideas are shared when we get together and collectively, work together as a team to help patients.
Yep.
Which is really at the end of the day what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, my doctors that have been to your events and go to your webinars and follow your stuff rave about it. They just absolutely really view it as kind of the go-to place to really get the kind of the real information, the unbiased positioning and information of how this stuff is evolving and growing and what's working and what's not. And like I said, I have a couple of my doctors that are like, I don't think they've been to an event yet, but they found you during COVID and they've been on a ton of your webinars, and they rave about the stuff that you put out.
We had like almost 10,000 people become Boston BioLife followers over COVID because we did so much on antibody testing, but really, getting into mitigation strategies, and we got prophylactic risk mitigation strategies for seroconversion, right? So how do we not get infected? That's all that means. It's fancy like. So what we're trying to say is, how do we boil this down to something that's meaningful and helpful? So if you have to text your patient, if there's an app that keeps everybody in line, if companies adopt strategies for health and wellness and gamify it, that's all happening. And it's happening because we're connected. And you can look at social media as, maybe a place to create an argument. You can also look at social media as a place to propagate goodwill. And we look at it as a way to share information. And I'm blessed that the people that have showed up at our door to share their ideas have. And, there definitely is a movement afoot for people to take more control of their own life and to work directly with their healthcare provider. And you're seeing a shift away from hospitals to more, half the physicians don't work in hospitals.
Yeah. And I would bet half of those in hospitals wish they could get out based on the calls that I have with them. So there's a huge movement underfoot. And I mean, I get asked this question a lot is, has a moment passed? Are there too many regenerative clinics? Are there too many functional medicine clinics?
No.
And the reality is, I agree. I mean, the reality is, 9 years ago, HRT was like, demon stuff, right? Now it's like ubiquitous. It's everywhere. And, people are more educated on it, and this generation, and I'm 53, the generation that's under 50, they are incredibly skeptical and they want to take control of their health. They just don't buy into the go see the doctor, take this pill thing anymore. They've seen the results of that. And so I think we're part of a huge sea change and wave of that's going to be happening in this country, of people taking more and more control over their health. So, all right, Joe, thank you for joining us. That's again, bostonbiolife.com. That's September 24th to 26th in beautiful San Diego. I will be there with bells on. And I guess I got to go buy some bells now.
Absolutely. I know
maybe you can bring some. Maybe you can take like the cat.
Clubs.
The golf clubs will be there, but I can trust you. I'm already working on a tea time at Torrey Pines.
Torrey Pines.
Yeah, there you go, baby. All right, everybody, check it out, bostonbiolife.com. This is Joe Krieger. I'm Matthew Galogli. This is the Practice Profit System podcast. And we'll see you next time or in San Diego. If you heard us on this, come up, shake my hand, or give me a fist pump, or whatever you feel comfortable doing during the COVID crisis. All right, everybody. Thanks.